Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you all? Hope you're well. Back for episode 91. We're getting there. We're getting close. So, yeah, got a lot lined up this week to share with you. Can't wait to get that done, including what have we got? Let's bear with me a minute. Make sure everything's working. Yeah, some announcements. So I've got a full announcement on part 2 of Battle of the Breeders. So basically, I say part 2. The Sunday event obviously got quite a bit lined up for that. So, yeah, can't wait to fill you in on that. I did obviously let go on a bit last week, but I've got the full details for you. And I think it's probably fair to say I'm going to quite heavily focus on the fish involved in that and tie it in with some appreciation for you this week, which I've got a really cool bit and focusing around sumi more than anything and how light can actually affect it. And actually understanding sumi quality a little bit more, which I think you'll find some value in that. Fingers crossed. Other than that, regarding Battle of the Breeders Part 1, there is now, to my knowledge, just one stubborn ticket left available. I just want to remind you guys that there's no the selection order's not done. It's not like you buy in the last fish. It's the selection's done. You know, the draw is done on the day. So. Even ticket number 50 has got a chance of having first pick. But yeah, just the one remaining, which I'm sure won't hang around for long. And then, yeah, I'll release a bit more info on, the Sunday part later. And that's also going to be a little bit on the tickets for general admission on the Sunday as well. But really looking forward to it. I think there's a lot of excitement in the air based on last year. I'm absolutely buzzing for it and obviously making it bigger and better over the 2 days and bigger and better on the return one. Got some amazing stuff lined up for that, which we're still piecing together at the moment. So, yeah, other than that, not too much more to share, really. Chaos as usual at Koi Wholesale at the minute. Had a phenomenal shipment in last week, which I think I mentioned. And then, I've got another one tomorrow, which is an absolute ball buster. 2 weeks on the bounce. And then another one coming at the end of the month. It's just insane. But, yeah, I think it's 1.8 tons in weight. Tomorrow's shipment's about 6,500 koi. And it's been fun trying to find the space for them. But, yeah, bonkers. But there we go. That's just this time of year. We'll have passed it soon. And yeah, other than that, I've felt a nice change in the weather today, to be fair. A bit windy, but the nippiness has gone out there and a nice bit of a mild breeze. So fingers crossed, folks. All we can do is pray for that one and hope the sunshine and better weather is not far away and hopefully a better one than last year anyway. But that is what it is. Us Brits are used to it. And obviously everyone else around the world, I know you have your issues too. You know, some countries we've got, apologies about that. Forgot to turn my computer off. Just bear with me, folks. Let's get that muted because that blew my head in. There we go. Yeah, so I know it's obviously crazy. You know, we often talk about not having enough heat for our ponds. And we've got to remember in some countries, the heat's the problem and they're having to focus on much as chilling as we are heating. Absolute madness. So there we have it. So obviously it's question time live, people. Please get some questions fired in for me to work through. This evening's segment is a much shorter one. So I've got a bit more time to actually spend delving into some of the questions. I'm not sure at what point I'm going to drop that because it all kind of ties together. And like I said, I've got this super bit on, Shirotsauri and Sumi more than anything, but we focus around the DK lineage. So yeah. Happy days. Right, let's see who we have got in this evening. I'm just going to fire through all these quickly. We hit some record numbers last week again, which was pretty awesome. I do appreciate that. Here we go. Greetings from the USA. Very nice. Mickey on his train. I was presuming not on the train directly to home, mate, but that'd be pretty cool if you were. Good evening to you all. Yes, Lewis, absolutely. It's starting to warm up a bit, mate. I agree. So yeah, don't forget, folks, questions, get them whacked in. And looks like as well, I've got a new toy coming for one of the ponds, which I'm quite excited about. in between all the other work that is ongoing at the minute. Right. There we go. We'll call that there because I need to get focused on some questions. But yeah, anyway, good evening, everyone. And there we go. Right. Let's get stuck straight into it. We'll get through a few questions and then I'm going to drop into this Shiro segment because I think I've managed to get the footage enough and the pictures where I can really explain this. And obviously I've got that to back it up as well, because I think it's understanding Sumi. We talk a lot about Benny, but I think understanding Sumi is different, and there's probably less information and appreciation out there in general for it. So yeah, let's have a look. Hi Ricky, is there any way to reduce biofilm in the pond, please? It's blocking up my Screenmatic filter screen. Would aeration in the pond help? Could I leave this on all year? Yeah, Kevin, I think that's unfortunately one of the downsides to such filters in this kind of scenario. Biofilm is tough. I mean, the stuff is nigh on indestructible at times. I remember speaking to Jasper at EA about this years ago with sieve screens, because we were talking about going from a 300 to I think it was 150 micron one, and he was talking about the lengths we'd have to go to clean that screen in order to keep the biofilm reduced. Now, I'm not quite sure what the setup is with the Screenmatic. I know it's one of the Oaza systems, but not the drum, if I remember correctly. But unfortunately, mate, I mean, biofilm typically is not something we're going to want to reduce in a pond anyway. It's the main part of the ecosystem, and you want as much of it as possible. So it seems crazy trying to reduce it to ultimately compensate for what's probably a flaw in the system. I'm sorry to say that a lot of these things are just probably too efficient and taking too much out. So I think it's even with the drums, it treads a fine line. We have to certainly be on top of ours, because with the temperatures and performance of the system, the biofilm buildup is bonkers. So we constantly have to keep reducing that on the drums. And yeah, again, probably a reason, I think it's nice to look at different with the Oaza drum again. As I've been looking at, there's an option for different grades of screens on them. So, yeah, unfortunately, you might want to look longer term at something different that's just going to stop the problem for you, to be honest. And again, it's just one of the flaws I see. So, yeah, but certainly I don't think having a conversation about reducing biofilm is one that I really ever expected to be having, to be honest. But yeah, good question, good point. I'm sure you're not the only one out there suffering with that one, Kevin, to be fair. Right, let's have a look. Oh, here we go. Grey Fox. Hey, Ricky, what's your opinion on the Dainichi Super Monster line? So I think you guys by now know my opinion on Dainichi, full stop. Absolutely phenomenal. And as far as Showa go, Showa is Dainichi pretty much. They are just phenomenal. The Super Monster line was really, really intriguing. So what we saw here is Dainichi was the first really original jumbo Showa line, but we're talking probably hitting the 80, 85 mark. And realistically, what was happening was there was the typical Showa body where they're a little bit more stout and very, very kind of deep and heavy on the sort of chest and shoulder region. Now, that was just typical Showa at that point. Obviously, Dainichi took it to the extremes. But then what happened is Madero waded in with the Mako Showa and completely changed the game by crossing the Mako Kohaku into Showa, which will create some problems, more Sumi problems than anything. They just completely rewrote the rule book. It was bonkers. And that's where we saw Lion Queen, I think it was, that won the All Japan Showa over a meter. And they kind of made that common practice with Showa all of a sudden at that point. The big thing with them was initially the Sumi quality was not even close to that of Dainichi. And I mean, Showa without good Sumi are not really worth a conversation. The Sumi is so important in that scenario. So what happened was, and there's actually a video of this circulating on YouTube, I believe you'll find it. Shigeru went shopping at Momotaro for a Momotaro Showa to cross in. And that was the start of the Super Monster or the Monster line. I can't remember if it started as Monster or Super Monster, but that was the very foundation of it, crossing that back in with Dainichi. Now, that was a crazy scenario as well, because the whole transaction wasn't managed directly between Momotaro and Dainichi. There was actually a go-between. I believe it was Ando who is one of the Dainichi Obi Kai, who had relations at Madero, actually kind of was a go-between in the whole scenario, because with these big heavyweight breeders, it's not a given that they can just walk in and buy something. There is a level of competition in there for sure, as much as there is collaboration on parts. So yeah, he eventually got this fish, and that was the base. Now, what we saw in the very early years of this, which isn't so much a problem now, but I have seen different kind of sumi behavior with Super Monster, was that the sumi was not as deep. And when I say that, it was more a superficial surface sumi than the typical Dainichi sumi, where you see it, like Kage sort of style, where it's sat deep in the skin and wants to come up slowly over time and forms that thick layers of glossy, inky black stuff. That kind of disappeared. But what we did have then all of a sudden was this change in the body shape, really. And whether or not, I don't know, how far Dainichi's took it now. They still keep it as a separate line that they promote. I've had quite a few of them. Yes, growth is insane. I do see a different sumi behavior overall. One of my favorite Dainichi lineages is the Mona Lisa Showa. They are phenomenal. But yeah, nothing wrong with the Super Monster. Would I say that they're the I see a big difference in growth? No, I don't think it's disproportionate. There is a different body line, slightly different body line for sure, probably not as powerful, but we're talking marginal stuff here. And there's only going to be a few fish, and it is going to vary case by case. But certainly where it is now is a lot more progressed and developed to where it was back at the beginning. So you're not going to go wrong with any of the Dainichi lineages, but there is a curiosity around that Super Monster. Not only is it a super cool name, they say there is that story, that backstory to it. And they've certainly continued with it. I mean, there's several generations down that track now. So it's hard to know if there's been males from that set being taken and crossed back into other lineages. I think the biggest thing to look at with this is ultimately you buy in Dainichi Show, you buy in the brand, and there is an overriding set of characteristics with that, like there is with Sakai and Momotaro, to be honest. You'll get little variances in the different parent sets, but ultimately you've got the overriding characteristics. Just like when Dainichi do a new variety, they want to keep that product on brand, like with the Yellow Monkey, Black Zeus, all of this. None of those would have been exciting Dainichi products had they not got the body and kind of parent fish size and growth potential that they have. So yeah, I hope you find that useful. Great. Right, just bear with me. Nice to be able to tune in to the live program from Canada. Amazing. Yeah, fantastic. Right. Hi, Ricky. I know you're trialing lights currently for indoor ponds and grow on tanks to help with colours. How many hours a day would you have the light on over the koi, please? Yeah, I'm not going to say too much on that yet at the minute. I've not actually got round and waiting on the delivery coming in of those. They've just been too busy to get to it. But yeah, it's going to be high on the agenda. Then it's just going to be a case of trialing it. But I would suggest, like this time of year and over the main winter in England, I mean, there's a lot more daylight hours now already compared to what there was. But on them shortest hours, I would probably suggest going as far as nearly all day, to be honest with you, because the light is just it's not good enough. The quality is nowhere near enough for achieving what it needs to. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Like I say, not going to go too much because I don't like spouting about stuff where I've not got that first-hand experience. But I say I know the problems there. I'm confident this product might be a great solution, and we will wait and see. There are obviously products out there at the minute. The biggest thing with a lot of these is how many lights you potentially need over at pond and the running cost of them. Because the wattage I've seen of a lot of these products is absolutely frightening. And that's where this Japanese product is hopefully going to rectify that, because the wattage is crazy low. So, and the units are fairly affordable in cost. But yeah, big topic. Light is going to be a big topic of this Shiro Sorry stuff when I get to it as well. It's just so important. Spring H. We're having spring weather in Long Island, New York. Amazing. Super sunny and 15. The koi want food. What range do you do wheat germ versus protein food? Yeah, probably neither. I'm going to say at that point. The wheat germ, I've said it many times before, I'm not a big believer in. I believe it was a product just made for a commercial purpose in order to sell fish food to pond owners and koi keepers during winter. what you do need really to focus on, yeah, you don't want crazy high protein, but the main focus really here is fat, a lower fat food. So in this case, if you're at 15, sake akari balance would be absolutely fine. You're not going to be feeding massive amounts. But then, like I say, just check something. The reason I say your high protein food generally is you're describing a growth food. Growth foods, you're way off the mark temperature wise for that. But look more importantly at the fat. You just don't want too high a fat content. If you look at that of most growth food, I mean, I've not analysed any for a long time, but I know you generally way over 10 with a growth food, and obviously under that with others. So yeah, just make sure you get that bit right. It's going to be the most important part to kind of look at. And obviously good quality protein. That's why where possible, you want the best quality ones, and make sure that main ingredient is fish meal and nothing else. It doesn't matter what you feed. If it's poultry meal based, any like that, no matter what temperature is, they're always going to do a shit job of digesting it, and you're likely to foul your water up very quickly. So they're the two bits I'd be paying attention to more than anything. Rory, what would be your breeder of choice for light brown Chago? I don't really dig the greeny colour. In that case, probably going to be Madero. And I mean, Marseille is more linked to the greeny colour, although we will have light brown in coloration as well. Madero is going to be more that light brown to a mid-brown tone, nothing too dark. And then you've got a few other breeders, Okawa, Koda, people like that, where you'll get Chago, Yamazaki even, that are the more oakier red, Ikarashi Azumi as well. Generally, Chiba breeders will produce Chago, and then the Chiba breeders go for a richer colour. Therefore, the Chago naturally get a richer colour. There are downsides to that, is they generally, the darker Chago don't seem to be the same beastly growers as the lineages such as Madero and Marseille that are lighter in colour, because more than likely there's had to be a compromise on the breeding or inbreeding to get the colour richness in the fish. Just like with Karashigo, you know, that's why it's amazing what the modern guys have done with the mango lineages, because basically we went from a point where we were you know, big Karashigo such as the Madero lineage, which was really or Konishi even as well. Konishi, Madero derived from Konishi. So those lineages produced more size and a really, really light colour. The mango colours came, but originally it was Yamazaki who was producing the nicer coloured Karashis, but there were compromises structurally. They just weren't as big and they wouldn't grow the same. So and then we had the Mariju Karashigo when he created that. That was a nice mix because he took Madero Karashi and mixed it with Yamazaki Karashi, which was a nice idea. And I mean, I had them that first year. He did. They were quite phenomenal. But then we've had the likes of Sakai create the mango line, and then Okawa by crossing Sakai mango with Konishi lineage. So, you know, all them, we've now got to a point where with Karashi, you've got size and colour. I've not really seen that with Chagoi so much. Okawas do grow, but also a problem generally, the dark coloured Chagoi seem to be more prone to shimmies, which is worth bearing in mind. I know I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but why not? The more information, the merrier. But yeah, light brown, I think possibly what you're describing is going to be the Madero sort of tone. Hard things to get, though. Those really are. Right. Hi, Ricky. Got into koi last year and wondering where is the best place for the UV. That's just going to depend on what kind of system you're installing. If you pump fed, it'll be before you filter. If you're gravity fed, it's going to be after. Really, it's kind of irrelevant where it is, so long as it is in that pipeline and installed correctly. So, yeah, no issues there. Or depending on your system, you can have it. I mean, there's all kinds of different UVs. Japan just have them where they shine on the water, sat above. You've got the ones that obviously shine on the water that fit into drums, although that's a bit more enclosed than the Japanese ones. Then, yeah, if it's an external unit, it's going to be based on whether you pump or gravity fed. Pump fed will be before you filter. Gravity fed will be after. I've got both scenarios and you get the same performance out of the UV. The most important things with your UV is to ensure that you maintain it. Your bulbs, realistically, your standard bulbs, you want to change every 6 months for maximum performance on them. The things will light up forever and a day, but you don't often get the proper performance from them after 6 months. And when you change your bulb, be careful with it because quartz sleeves are pricey, but it's always a good idea to strip your unit down and clean your quartz sleeve, because that is what your bulb has to shine through to hit the water. and those things get in a right shitty state. So what you could find is you've got a bulb in there blaring away, but it's shining through a thick wall of algae and doing absolutely nothing. So yes, there we go. That feels like my old shop days going on about that one. Ooh, that's a good question. Hi, Ricky. Are there any varieties that haven't been around for a while that you would like to see make a comeback? Oh, I might need a minute on that one. Yeah, actually, while that one's burning away in the back of my brain, there was me and Chris were speaking about this in one of the podcasts we did last week, I think it was, whichever one it was, the first one back, kind of, trending varieties. And it did slip me at the time, but yeah, there is a massive one at the minute for Ginrin. And I'm not even going to say Ginrin Showa. I mean, I love Ginrin Showa, but Ginrin Sankey and Ginrin Kohaku have gone mad. And I mean, absolutely mad. Anybody who seems to be breeding Sankey or Kohaku at the minute is making a Ginrin variant. Years back, you struggled getting them. That industry and that market became dominated. I mean, Madero took a massive foothold in it. Madero is really still the truest jumbo Ginrin lineage out there. Phenomenal, but there is some cracking ones coming on. Mariyama, for example. I've even seen Nogami's doing it now. Literally everybody. And Ginrin Sankey literally went from, I remember having the conversation about, liking them so much, but them being so difficult to get. Again, now everybody's at it. So I think you're going to probably, get to the point where you're going to see a lot of them soon. They're commanding pretty big money as well. I mean, because they're coming from pretty big hitting breeders. And generally, when they do any variants, the demand is always really, really high. But yeah, any varieties I like to make a comeback. To be honest with you, and just as I've been on about it, and that's just hit me, I've not seen a lot of Deutsch Karashi going for a long time. I know Marido still got them there, had the toe side this year, but there was a phase where there was a lot of them around. Yamazaki, Marido, Mariju. Kinishi's always got a few, but Kinishi fish are generally very hard to get hold of. Extremely pricey is Karashigoi. And I just find them, for me, a stunning variety, especially when they get the size. Interestingly, Harawaki was a conversation we've had recently, whereas there was a time where, if you could have got 3,000 Harawaki, you'd have sold them in a week. You just could never get them. And now it seems to be the end of demand, and popularity of them has just dropped off no end, to be honest. But yeah, off the top of my head, and something might hit me in a bit, but I would say realistically, that is one that, I've seen kind of fizzle out and go away. But generally, there's probably more choice of variety than ever at the minute, really, which is exciting for the koi scene, and loads of new varieties that keep cropping up as well. Right, I'm going to get one more question, and then we're going to get stuck into this Shirosori stuff. There's nearly 200 of you tuned in again, which is amazing, folks. Do appreciate that. Right, Kevin. Do air stones for aeration have to be in the pond, or will it make no difference if the air stones are in the filter for a smaller koi pond? That will make absolutely no difference. Now, I think there's a common myth that if you put the air stone in the filter, all that aeration will just be consumed by the filter before it gets to the pond. It's not true. I don't know all the science behind it, but it was explained to me by Jasper EA again once upon a time that actually fluid beds can be one of the most efficient aerators in water for actually getting oxygen content into water, which blew my mind at the time. Like I said, I don't fully know the science behind it. There was an optimal depth and a few other bits, but in my 1,200 gallon ponds, that greenhouse, we don't aerate in the ponds whatsoever. All the aeration is driven through the fluid bed and the spray bar return, which will act as surface agitation, aeration, and there is a lot of surface movement in there and degassing. So, so long as you get in the volume of aeration in, it doesn't matter necessarily if it's in the pond. What will aid you in the pond is obviously it gets you some circulation around and some movement in there, which will be beneficial. That's why it's worth, if you're not aerating the pond and aerating the filter, look at what returns you've got actually going in. I wouldn't advise a completely still pond, especially if it's smaller, because you just don't want to risk getting any drop off in there. But yeah, just look at that setup. Like I say, I wouldn't go to the point with mine where I didn't have any agitation in the pond at all. So, but yeah, it's a viable setup, Kevin. Absolutely. Right. Let me get this loaded up. So you might well remember a DK Shiro of mine that I had not shown anybody till autumn. It was a phenomenal result. The story of this was the sort of change in this fish had been so much. The day I was there, I get a call that Ricky Shiro has been harvested. So I turned up. It's literally over there. Fish house is next door to where I stay. And yeah, they said, that's your Shiro. And I looked and I went, wow, that's phenomenal. I want that fish anyway, but it's not mine. And then all this palaver kicked off because they were sure it was. And then when they figured out there was the confusion that no, that wasn't mine, then it's like, oh, where is mine? So in a blue tank, we lifted it up. And it took me a minute, but in the end, I went, it's that one. Followed by then being told, no, I don't think it is. We need to wait for Makoto to come. Makoto come, and I said, it's that one. And then in the end, after a huge committee meeting, they did agree it's that one. Just because the change with the fish was absolutely bonkers. So yeah, that fish, although the change was insane and every other thing on it looked amazing, the body, the growth had been amazing, I was blown away. The sumi got to the point where it looked to be of a really, really low quality, which surprised me because as a Nisai, as you're going to see here, had every characteristic where I would expect to see really high quality sumi flourishing. Now, I didn't panic because I've encountered this before, especially with DK Shiro. And not only have I encountered it with that, it's just something in general, but also something that I was confident could be fixed. So let me take you through the journey. I'm just going to switch screens up now. I'm going to start with the fish as it is. So I can't remember the exact size. I think we're in the low 60s with this as a Sanzai. 60, I want to say 63, 64, something like that. So as you can see, fish is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Body is bonkers. I mean, just look from the mouth, the size of the head is insane. And it's not even, to me, even the fins look a little bit big at the minute because it's not even started filling out into the fins, which is a phrase I do use sometimes because there are some fish where that is literally the case. You know, it's got to fill out. You see this fish fins a bit oversized. And with this kind of bone structure, the volume's nowhere near there yet. So there'll come a point where the body mass kind of just makes the fins appear a bit smaller now than what they look at the minute. So yeah, I mean, everything, that body line is just an absolute dream. However, look closely at the sumi because what you can see, if you look into the scales, you can see we've got darker patches and lighter patches in the scales. Just behind the head, there's an actual bit that's a little bit thicker. But generally, I mean, the Motogoro looks faded in the fin. It's not great. And certainly as you look further down the sort of body of the fish, you can see it gets even lighter where you've got that darker bit and then you've got the light bit in the scale. So to me, I didn't panic. I was, obviously, it's always, when you've got a fish, I mean, the dream with this, that right there is a potential 80, 85 centimetre Shiro Sori every day of the week with that body line from this DK lineage at NND. What a shame it would have been if that's the case that, oh, got it now, it's just got Shitsumi, it's a write-off, because that's where a lot of people would have been at. You know, we all knew it didn't look great. Even KB was speaking to me. I said, look, I'm not worried. I want to leave it here and assess it in spring. I says, because I don't know the mud pond it's come from, but what I think's happened here is it's been a very hot summer, which the super high water temperatures won't have helped. It's grown phenomenally. I mean, it took 12, 13 cm, I think it stuck on, and heaps of volume. So it's done incredible things there. B, I don't know the scenario. So obviously mud ponds are generally darker anyway. The UV transmission through the water, you know, at the surface, as it goes down, it gets less and less. And I don't know, you know, some ponds are a lot darker than others. There's some that obviously fully enclosed by mountains at times. I don't fully know every detail. But I believe generally what had happened here is if you flip the sumi out and imagine it as Benny, this was like the color had retracted back into the scale. And that's where you see the darker and lighter patches. The darker patch where there is more sumi pigment and the lighter patch where it's basically gone into hiding. So all them factors considered, I think, right, just needs time, which is a big thing. I believe a lot of you guys are guilty of at times, not giving fish. Certainly when you've invested in higher end fish, you know, stuff can happen. Environmental influences can be huge on stuff like this. So, yeah, where we got to, well, let me show you the fish where we got. That's the video of it at this point. Again, I think you can really see what I'm on about here. Behind the head, it looks that bit thicker, a bit shinier. But look at down the flank of the fish here as it turns. There is just no depth to that sumi whatsoever. The biggest bit, however, is, and this is important to look at, there is sashi. And don't forget, you should always assess the sashi of sumi just like you do beni, sashi and kiwa. Now, the sashi here is really deep and consistent on this shiro look, and that's often something I use as a guide to assess future sumi quality, especially in a fish where there's sumi up at a young age. That just tells me that there's depth to that sumi that's still going to come up. So if I show you this one, this is the amazing before and after transformation, by the way. I mean, it's with that head pattern, that's a big becoming for me a DK Shiro trait, which I will speak about more in a minute. But you can see here as the Nisai on the left, what I saw was that incredible shine on the sumi, good sashi, which again I'm looking for, especially if you look at the back of the fish. What I'm looking at there is that because the sumi's already up, not finished, but it's just up, I'm looking for that sashi to tell me that there's depth there. So as that fish grows, that's going to continue to thicken and become shinier and glossier. Now, and the rest of it, you can see that type of sumi on the shoulder there, where it's underlying that kind of kage effect. That is what generally tells me there with that sumi that's deeper in the skin. And that's the type of sumi that comes up over time and it layers up and it gets thicker and shinier. So there was not one indication of the fish on the right where it's now Sansai, so it's 59, look, it's on that picture, had low quality sumi. No indication, or what actually happened there shocked me because I wasn't expecting that in a month of Sundays. Honestly, I just wasn't. So again, that's what got me thinking this is more external factors had an impact here on the fish. Phenomenal, but we need that sumi quality. It's absolutely everything. And so, yeah, hopefully, I hope all that makes sense, what I've said so far. Obviously, that's me assessing that. This kind of fish that's on the right, as it is now as Sansai, if that was the Nisai I was buying, I probably would be concerned, a little bit more concerned. There is the sashi there, which would be my hope, and I'd want to see more what's happened, at Nisai. But if I just took that on face value, if that was a Nisai like that and it didn't have the sashi, that's the important part there. If it didn't have the sashi, I'd be worried that that's quite low quality sumi overall, because that's generally what you'll get these fish where the sumi's up like that at a young age. And you think great, but it never actually changes, and it won't change. What you also see, you'll see this, and again, why I didn't panic too much was that if you grow Shirotsuori in the dark, you will find you'll get amazing sumi development, as in it coming up, but it will be thin as hell. There'll be no depth, no shine, no luster, typically, and it would look like that till you put it outside. So yeah, that's where that was. So I didn't write it off, get it some time. And I was just chatting away to KB the other day, and he says, "Oh, I've nipped in the fish house today and seen your Shiro looking great." So excuse this video, it's not the best. Oh, and it's letting me down by the looks of it. Just give me a second, see if it plays. No, right. Let me just give me a second, folks, and I will reload that in. There we go. I think you can see, even though it's not the best video, you can see already that the shine, look at the thickness now. It looks absolutely solid, and it's starting to get that glossiness and shine back to it. Absolutely delighted. So obviously it's been kept in clearer water. The UV over there generally a bit better overall, and it just coming on an absolute dream. So now it's going to be interesting, hopefully in the right pond this summer, in the right mud pond, which will have to be grown in. That's really just going to go from strength to strength to strength now. I don't really want another year where it kind of knocks it back a little bit like that. Now I've got to this base point. I want to sort of kick on from there. But yeah, that's that one really. I hope that does make sense to you. Sumi is very complex stuff. All is typically not what it seems with it, to be honest. But it's really, really important to understand how influenced and affected it can be by external influences, and especially light and UV. It's just as important with sumi as it is with beni. Yeah, crazy. So let me just get that one off. And just the other bit, and let's get the picture back, look. So this is not the first time this has happened to me with these radical Sumi transformations of DK Shiro in a short space of time. That's exactly a year between those two pictures. And that's the crazy bit as well. Despite the Sumi on the body being affected, there's been a huge, in fact, the whole fish has had Sumi development, which is probably another reason why it's done what it's done. But the head has just transformed, and that's how much difference. I never bothered when I saw that fish as a Nisai. It would literally glance. There was a shove out of the fish house, not long been harvested. It was at the end of the day. I caught it. I'm like, I'm having that. So got the deal done, much to Makoto's dismay. And the head pattern never came into it because at this point I already know NND DK Shiros really well. And I just knew something would come. Was I expecting that? No, not in the slightest. I mean, that head pattern is just off the chain, insane. But yeah, and this is not the first time. Selecting young Shiros is fun. You do need some patience, but it's looking at outlines with these things. You can't look too into it at this point because there's too much going to happen in the time span, up to 3, 4, 5 years old. So yes, which kind of brings us on to let's have a look. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to get these videos loaded back in because they're probably going to let me down. The event. So yeah, part 2, Sunday, 28th, get my dates mixed up, is the more open part of the Battle of the Breeders event. So there are tickets going to be on sale for general admission to the event, just to come and experience everything that we're putting on like we did at part 2 last year. So there'll be more info on that soon, but I am going to be releasing those tickets for sale. We don't have admission on the day, just so you need to pre-book the tickets in advance. We're going to release those on Sunday via the Koi Talk website, koitalk.com. So they'll be on there to purchase. But yeah, the main event for part 2. So what we wanted to do, obviously, we work and I do try our absolute best to cram as much value into the day one. But I do get that 495, although it is incredible value, is just out of reach for people. So we wanted to do something to be as inclusive as possible. And you may well have seen the video already when I dropped on with all the new season toe side DK Shiros with NND. So I was incredibly fortunate enough to get, wrong screen there, just bear with me, folks. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to, be allowed the amazing opportunity to actually pick through an unsorted pond with Fujo and get hold of 50 Tatigoi, which was mind-blowing. Those things are just, crazy money, really. So I'm going to be growing those on myself and, being a bit selfish in all truth and just enjoying them. But afterwards, there was the pond there that they'd already sorted through. And I was just amazed at the quality. They've already selected so hard this year before they even got into the fish house. So as they've gone through, I kind of looked and seeing his pattern of selection during the day, you could see the potential in that pond still. So I went ahead and did a deal for the whole lot. And for this Sunday event, what I'm going to be offering is your chance to get one of those. And then that's going to be taken back like the original Battle of the Breeders event, grown by me over this kind of 4.5 month period that it's going to be, which is going to get you a hell of a fish at the end of it, trust me. And we're doing all that for 295 quid. Now, I wish I could get it lower, but it's just not viable for me to even give a pond up at that point. But hopefully it's a way just for a few more people to be able to get involved in what we're doing. Now, I've got 50 places available, like with the main event. And they're going to be available straight after this, the show. It's with JPN Koi Co, Chris again, and the guys at Sunnybank Koi. Now, I know a lot of you are already in the WhatsApp group. I will put the banner up because I'll release details of those two guys' group. Obviously, you can get on the website. Sunnybank Koi has actually got them listed on the website already, I believe, to purchase it. And what that'll get you is, like I say, entry to that, obviously entry to the event. But on that Sunday, you'll be able to pick your fish. It'll be a lucky draw to decide the selection again. Although there's 50 entries, I'm going to have 80 fish there to pick through. So there's going to be absolutely loads. And I'm excited for this one because this is really going to test people's eye in getting this. And I know the change in these and what they'll become by the return part of the event is just going to be absolutely bonkers. So yeah, first things first, let me just get you the QR code for the group. There's that one. So if you scan that, you'll get into our WhatsApp group, and then afterwards, after the show, I'll just be posting a few more details in there for you about how you can get hold of a ticket. And yeah, I've got a video, so I've took the video clip. If you on our YouTube channel, you can actually see the whole video, it was a great day, great one to watch and you'll see the segment of these towards the end. But I have just nicked that segment out to share with you now. Obviously, if you've got any questions while we're on, feel free to fire them in. But yes, let me play this one for you. There's a bit of original audio to it, not much to be honest, and then I'm going to step in about midway through. So let's see if it's actually going to work as well. There we go. Oh, still got that on. Go guys, so deal done. This whole pond, DK Shiro. Really good size, nice fish. I'm going to take a closer look at some now. These nets they use are awesome. Big scoop. Right, so what you can see here is as soon as that net was done, I made a couple of selections just to show some of the slightly more patterned fish, and then you'll see in the bowl after some of the ones that probably I would lean towards picking, to be honest, moving forward. But generally, the two bowls show the quality level I'd be selecting out of that pond for this event representative. And you can see there it was just a scoop, nothing specific. A lot of the other stuff where they're a lot riskier, should I say, with a lot less sumi showing, I would leave behind. But generally, I think the potential is really clear on these. You can see that DK lineage, really see it in the heads and mouths in particular. And like I say, the few examples there, a lot of sumi showing already. Sumi sat under the skin. So the fish are a little bit easier to read now than what some of the others are in there, which I know a lot of them other whiter ones will do something. I think it's a lot harder for people to see, hence why I'll probably choose to leave them out this occasion. There'll be a few in there for the brave of you out there that wants to risk it. I generally just select them fish on Shiroji quality and body, but here you can see there more. That for me is my kind of selection style when I'm looking at Shiros. It really is, but you can see there's a diverse mix in there, but overriding the quality of that Shiroji, the quality of them bodies. It really is there for all to see. And yeah, quite phenomenal. These, like I said, probably the most in-demand Shirotsauri lineage I know of at the minute, to be honest. Probably more so than Omasako, which seems bonkers, but there we go. There's a great, lineage behind all these. So, like I say, they're in at $295 a ticket, including the growing period with me. In your ticket, obviously with the main battle of the breeders tickets, that gets you access to the event over the 2 days anyway. But on the with those, it gets you access to the Sunday along with a +1 as well. So yeah, exciting stuff. Let's say just trying to make it as accessible as we can. When we bundle in the growing, obviously there's a cost to it, which I can't get away from. But like I say, when you look at that, the fish you're going to be actually ending up with is going to look nothing like that, and certainly nowhere near that size. And that's the shock I like to see on people's faces. So yeah, there we go with that one. So like I say, WhatsApp group, I'll message after some more details if you want them. But other than that, there's 50 places available, and you can get them via JPN Koi, Chris, and Neil at Sunnybank Koi as well. Right, let's have a look at some more questions, guys. and I have got another little fish to share with you in a minute because the All Japan Young Koi show is coming up. I seem to have a real strong affection for this show. It's some of the best success I've had going back to 2016 when I started this. I had an absolute horde of awards, including I think a Sabaki prize and a Kukugyo at that show. It took me by surprise big time, to be honest, as well as a bundle of first prizes, and it's kind of gone on ever since then. Yeah, I've loaded a few weapons up for this one, to say the least, amongst a vast collection of client fish as well, which is looking pretty amazing. But yeah, one Kowako I wanted did escape me, which I'm not happy about, but that is what it is. It's a competitive world. But yeah, this Ginrin Showa, dearie me. Right, anyway, let's have a look where I got to. Lewis, Ricky, going to start with an auto feeder start of April. What's the best way to start without overwhelming the filters and obviously filling with sake? Yeah, awesome. The best way to start is just as low as possible. So, I mean, what you're going to want to do, this is going to be very temperature dependent, but you've got to start at really low, consistent levels. So even if you're planning on starting on 4 feeds a day, it's going to depend on the auto feeder as well, actually, here, because the JBL feeder, which is the one I would recommend for most people. Say you're using a small pellet in that, 1 bar of small pellet versus 1 bar of medium pellet is a big difference. And sometimes I find that the 1 bar of small pellet can actually be too much versus the Japanese feeders where I can, increase it in seconds, makes a big difference. But for the price cost, that's why I say the JBL is the better feeder, because for most people, that doesn't warrant the difference in price. So yeah, just start off very slowly and consistently, because you've got to seed the filter in to the feeding level. So like I say, if you're planning on 4 times a day, if you're using a medium pellet, you'll probably get away with doing it 4 times a day, but on 1 bar. Doesn't matter how long it takes them to eat it, you're starting on 1 bar a day. Let that go. You might find you just hit a snag after 4 to 5 days where the water might just go off a little bit. Providing you've got decent water temperature, you just need to kick through that. And you will do. Your filter's just got to catch up. Don't back it off unless things start taking a turn for the worst. But generally, it's just a barrier you've got to push through. And from there, you've just got to build slowly. You've got to keep taking the filter up to new levels. It's not what the fish are capable of eating, it's what the filters are capable of processing. And if you bear that in mind all along the way, say, don't get too scared if you hit a bit of a rocky patch. Certainly, if you've not got the water temperature, if you have got the water temperature, you'll get through it quickly. If you haven't, you've got to be a lot more careful, because you're not going to cycle through them spikes as quickly. Hi Ricky, what are your thoughts on Tejime being an indicator of sumi quality in Sankey? Yeah, not one I use whatsoever for that. Motoguro in young Tosai, Shiro, and Showa, yes, especially if there's no sumi on the body, it can be really, really helpful. But often you'll find in young Sankey, they'll be absolutely non-present, typically until you might hit a late Nisai going on to Sansai or somewhere, which at that point you're already going to have sumi enough on the body to assess the quality. So with Sankey, that's not a technique that I use. But like I say, with Shiro and Showa, yes, it is as some lineages, especially with Shiro, there might be no sumi on the body, but just a bit of Motoguro in the fin. And that is a bit of a hack to trying to discover or gauge the potential sumi quality on the body. Although it's not a foolproof method and not the only bit, it's just at that point in time, it's all we've got. So it's what we would use to go on. Right, let's have a look. Hey, funny you should ask that. So Kiba, yet to get there. Been driving past the place for too long now. Obviously, when I'm based in Okayama, going out to farms in South Japan, Kibi's actually one of the service stations there. So yeah, next trip definitely on it, because I've secured a few fish there now. The fish I'm about to show you is actually from Kiba. And yeah, yet to really delve into it. All I know is the Ginrin show where he's kind of popping out, absolutely class. So more to come on that one. Kevin, will he be getting Mona Lisa shows in this year? I am working on it still. This is going to be an absolute ball buster of a deal if and when it comes off. Probably when. It's just how painful it's going to be. So stay tuned on that one. But it's still on. It's just a big one burning away in the background. My boys, Corey, Danny, good evening. How are you, mate? Ricky, how do breeders come up with the names of new varieties like Yellow Monkey, Black Zeus? I have got no idea. I'm presuming by some of the names, they must be absolutely pissed up in a bar somewhere, or just stick a load of random shit in a hat, load of random words, pick two out and stick them together. So who knows? They just seem to have a knack of doing something completely random, obscure, and making it sound cool. God knows how they do that. I wish I could do it, but there we go. That's as much as I can add on that one. It's an absolute mystery. It really is. Madero always seemed to be a unicorn fish at the moment with no issue with Dutch crash going our pond. Fair enough. Yeah, I think what's happened with Madero sort of really slipped away. You're right. Iowa Cab has become more prevalent. You will get some Madero off Iowa Cabba, but they tend not to hold steady. And even over the years, there's only two breeders I ever really knew of who produced Madero. One of them's gone now. That was Tozawa completely. He made some pretty awesome ones. But yeah, you're right. It's a bit of a tough variety, but again, they're very, very Marmite fish, as Iowa Cabba are as well, and a lot of them varieties. But yeah, you're right there. I think when one of them looks good, they really did used to look the business. Them Tozawa ones were the absolute nuts. But yeah, that guy was crazy. That farm was crazy. John is in the house. Good evening, mate. How are you? Right. I think, Richard, most important question for me tonight is, are you buying the drinks on the Saturday and Sunday? No, apparently that is all down to Chris and Neil, to be honest. They volunteered themselves to buy all the drinks all night. So, yeah, happy days. Oh, there we go, Craig. Good question. Do all the breeders have a succession line for retirement, or do you see a few going once age catches up with them? Yeah, absolutely. This is actually a hot topic with a couple of farms I'm close to at the minute, because there really is no succession, absolutely nothing. And I can't see there being anybody, to fit that frame either. So it just maybe more than likely, like recently, Oyaji, I think it was last year or the year before, he packed up. Sakazumi Koi Farm just kind of took over everything there, mud ponds and fish houses, parent fish as well. So yeah, it'll be sad, but there's a lot of old boys out there at it with there is no succession into it. But likewise as well, a lot of the farms are now on that next generation, and you can see the next generation coming through, which is great. But likewise, for ones that go, you get new ones like Kiba and others cropping up. So there just does seem to be a decent cycle of it out there overall, which is cool. I'll take that as Neil agreeing to that then. Fantastic. Right, guys, what have I got for you last? Oh, that's it. I'm going to share this fish with you, aren't I, before we get wrapped up. So let me have a look. Just switch that screen over. There we go. So, yes, this is one of my entries to the All Japan Young Koi Show, and I've got to say I'm feeling confident. That confidence does often get blitzed at times, because you've got to remember the level that you're competing at. But sometimes I just get that gut feeling about a fish, and that to me feels almighty strong. I'm obsessed with Ginrin Showa at the best of times. I've actually just had a stunning batch come in, not from Kibi, from a different breeder. They're now in quarantine and they look amazing, but this thing is just off the chain. So, yeah, really looking forward to that competing. I mean, you just look again there at what's going on with that. The head straight away, look, got a nice big mouth, very long, wide head, super, super important. The quality of the Ginrin is just superb throughout, as is the all of the skin, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, it's the pattern. This is what we get to in the end, obviously, at top koi show level fish. The body and the skin is just an absolute given. If that's not there, it's not even getting to the show. And it all then comes down to the pattern. And that, to me, just as you look at it, there's that fourth characteristic you keep speaking of, that emotional element. You just look at that and go, fucking wow. That's my take on that. And yeah, I can see it. Really can. So fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. I've got a few other weapons tucked up my sleeve. But we'll wait and see. Like I say, these All Japan level shows are a big leveler. And just when you think, you know, you've got something competitive, a bigger gun walks in and just blows you out of the water, excuse the pun. So, yeah, let's wait and see. But you can take that fish as an exciting sign for that farm as well, to be honest with you, which we'll be dropping in on. But yeah, there we go, folks. I got problems, mate. I don't hide it anymore. So yeah, there we go. I hope all that's been all right for you. I hope we learned something there as well with the whole Sumi stuff and the Shiros. You know, they are quite phenomenal, but quite complex. Sumi is just absolutely bonkers. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in with questions this evening. That is much appreciated. I'm just going to give you the QR code once more. So if you want to get in there straight afterwards, I'm just going to drop you a few more details about the day 2 of the event and the DK Line Shiro grow out. It was amazing to get them. Still, if you can watch that video over on the channel, I'd recommend it. You know, they are the only Tosai, you know, new crop Tosai DK Shiros in the country this year. Amongst that, the Tatigoi level stuff, like I say, you're just going to love following them and the content I'm going to produce, and then the chance to get your hands on one of them others, absolutely, bonkers. So there we go. I will catch all you guys next week. Thank you all for tuning in, and yeah, I need to find my end card now. I'm absolutely useless with all this, but there we go. Thanks again, folks. I will catch you next week.